Yes, question for John. Curious about if pumping can begin tomorrow night, what sort of vessel are they pumping onto? What capacity in terms of oil tonnage is it able to take at a time?
I can't really pronounce the name of the vessel, but it's a tanker called the Tauranga. Awanui, sorry. And it is it has a capacity to take about 3,000 tonnes of heavy fuel oil. And there's a lot on board the ship is approximately 1,700 tonnes.
And what kind of speed would the pump be working at then?
That varies. You know, we would be hopeful to get about 30 to 40 tonnes using the ship's equipment, if we can use the ship's equipment. We're still assessing whether we can actually use the ship's equipment. But there are a lot of factors involved in the rate, including the weather and also the viscosity of the oil and other factors as well. So that is the optimum rate, really.
Has there been any kind of assessment done to determine if all of it could be pulled off before the weather, the bad weather sets in?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is there's only two tanks that are actually in way of the grounding location. One of them is breached, which is where the oil is coming from. The other one is intact. What they're trying to do, and they've started doing it, we've got some locally based pumps and hoses, and they're trying to transfer this oil to the other tanks, which are outside the danger area on the vessel. There are space in those tanks, and what they're trying to do is take that oil and transfer it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to do that for the other tank as well, transfer it to other tanks on the vessel.
Right.
As I said.
John, what's the possibility of doing this pumping once the weather sets in and the swell picks up?
Sometimes you can do it. It all depends on what the weather is like. But as I said, what they're planning to do is moor this particular barge off the stern of the vessel, and that will help if you bring a vessel alongside, particularly with a vessel that's got an 11-degree list. It's very difficult to keep it moored alongside. So they're putting it at the after end to make life easy for them so that they can actually keep this, try to keep us pumping as long as possible in the weather. But weather does affect it.
But it will go ahead regardless? Or is there a certain, once the swell gets above this level, it can't be done?
Yes, they don't fix, they will look at the situation. We know what the weather forecast is coming in, but we don't know how it's going to affect the vessel.
It's unlikely the oil will be off before the water changes.
Unlikely.
What sort of equipment are you going to be laying on the moment?
The pumps and hoses.
What's the, can you give us any details of the draft salvage plan?
The draft salvage plan, as Bruce has said, it's a very outline plan, and it always is, because they have to assess the situation as accurately as possible. So the draft salvage plan is, like I explained earlier, is to get the oil off is a priority, and then remove the weight off the vessel for it to refloat. That is effectively the salvage plan. So it's how you remove that weight. What we'd like to do is to bring another vessel alongside, if we can, to lift the containers, transfer the containers on.
Using a floating crane?
No, it's another vessel with potentially with geared 2 cranes that can reach over and take the containers on. But as you can imagine, 11-degree list, lifting a container on the 11-degree list is going to be a very complex operation.
How does this rate, in your experience, in terms of complexity?
Very high.
How's work going in terms of getting that boat with the cranes next to it?
That has been fixed. No, that is it's actually been fixed.
Okay.
That is available. Actually, it's in Wellington on the 10th, I think. The cargo, removing the cargo, they say you have to start analysing how to get this cargo off safely. There is a vessel fixed available to come alongside and do this, but they've got to make sure they have the proper operation, proper procedures to get these containers off.
People that you talk to on the beach, cafes and stuff in the mountain are obviously very, very worried about this, and a lot of them are getting quite stressed out about it. Is there anything you'd like to say to them on behalf of yourself?
Well, I will say to them that you've got the best team, best salvage team, possibly in, I would say in the world, best salvage team.
Do Do you have any like projections that if you can't pump fuel oil off in time, like how long this vessel is going to stay intact for?
That is what they're assessing the vessel now. There's a team of naval architects on board the vessel, and they're assessing it. They're also mobilising equipment to measure the motion of the vessel, to try to determine the motion of the vessel in real time, so they can understand what is happening to the vessel and how is it being affected by the sea and the storm. To understand whether it is bending or flexing or whatever.
Do they have any idea of how much more it can withstand?
Well, vessels can withstand an awful lot, but it all depends on the situation where it is. If you are on, like we have, the fore end of this vessel is heavily aground, and the after end is afloat. So the after end will tend to move. If the forward end tends to move, that's okay, it's not flexing. But what the difficulty is if the after end moves and the forward end doesn't move, if we get the bending. Okay. So they have to assess that and see what is happening. Divers are going down on a daily basis to look at the condition of the damage, to assess the condition of the damage, see if it's changed. That is happening now. That's been happening for the last 3 days.
Is it still being damaged?
It will crush down. The weight on the forward end of the vessel will start to crush down. The seabed here is rock, so you will have a little bit of give in the steelwork. But what we need to monitor is not worried about the giving in the steelwork. We need to monitor whether there's anything else that's been affected with the movements of the vessel, any kind of failures or anything like that, any kind of flexing of the steel on the side of the hull. At the moment, the side of the hull is very, very clear. There's no deformation at all. And these vessels are designed very strongly to take longitudinal movement.
You talked about refloating it. How would you do it?
To refloat it, you have to remove weight. And the weight is in the container effectively, because we cannot remove. We're taking the oil out, but that's a small amount of weight. We need to take off possibly more weight. We'll take the containers off. The other way of doing it is redistributing the weight around the ship, i.e. moving weight from forward to aft to try to trim it and then bring it off. Because the water, astern of the vessel is very deep. Yeah, you'll pull it off in tubs, you'll bring it off in tubs, but the vessel's engines are actually working. The vessel is working, the engines are working, machinery is everything is okay on the vessel.
Maybe a question for Rob. How are the crew doing on board that?
Yes, the crew are all right on board, but as you can well imagine, it's a very crowded ship at the moment because we have an expanding salvage team on board. So we will probably be trying to take some of the crew off to give more space for the salvage team. But the crew at the moment are very good indeed.
How important is it to deal with this while the ship's on the surface before everything gets undone?
Oh, very important. Very important.
That to people, like how you're working against the problem.
Yes, we are, but this is, as I said to you before, the salvage team do this all the time. They know what they're doing, and they're assessing this situation, and they're using. It's a 24-hour operation, so the guys on board at the front line are passing information to their Holland office, and they're working overnight on this, assessing what we need to do on this. It's a constant operation. More information comes out all the time, and it's a dynamic situation. We need to respond.
I do have some questions for Rob, if that's okay. Did Maritime New Zealand receive any complaints about the Rena in the 3 weeks before this incident happened?
None that I'm aware of.